Can we come back to Angela Rayner, though? I mentioned that she was brought up at PMQs yesterday by Rishi Sunak, lots sort of hitting back on this issue. We know there's a police investigation. I do not understand why Greater Manchester Police Chief thinks that 6 police officers should be involved in an investigation, which is clearly much simpler. I mean, I'm sorry, 2 max could probably do this in a week or less. But there are still allegations about the council house that she owned, whether or not she should have paid capital gains tax on the sale, whether or not she should have had to pay back a discount that she got from the council for buying it because she wasn't living in the home, claims that she was living in the home with her husband and her children and not where she claimed she was. Did she give wrong information on either the birth certificate for her children or the electoral register? It's a complicated story, but we know that the investigation has now widened even to the sale of her past husband's house, because, again, where was he living and should he have paid capital gains tax on the sale of his house? Now, I mean, it's a complicated story. I don't know if it's really got... It's not got the public imagination the same way, say, like Partygate has or something like that. Of course it hasn't. She's not in office. She wasn't an MP then. It's got lots of provisos there. But do you think this is still nevertheless damaging both Angela Rayner and also damaging the party and also Rishi, Keir Starmer? Because he says he hasn't seen her legal advice. He doesn't need to see her legal advice, but he accepts what she hasn't done anything wrong.
I don't think it's at all damaging. I mean, you can see that in the polls. I see that on the doorstep. You know, I'm out campaigning for the local elections at the moment, and I am telling you, you know, whatever somebody's political colouring when they open the door to me, nobody's bringing this up, right? Yep. I was really struck last week. I was coming on to talk to one of your colleagues about this story, and I mentioned it to my housemate, and he was like, Angela Rayner's what now? And he's, you know, he's a politically engaged guy. He definitely had not heard about the story. I think yesterday, when it came up in PMQs, was probably the first time. I imagine it was on the tea time news bulletins. That's when people first heard about it. It will have sounded confusing to them. And really crucially, I think it's really great that that Keir said this at PMQs. They see a story about Angela Rayner, you know, working for the council as a social carer, had been a single mum for a long time, single mum of a child registered blind, like following legal advice and doing what she was told was right. But
we haven't seen the legal advice.
OK, I'll finish that. They see her being criticised for that, and they compare it to, like, Rishi Sunak's household benefiting 20 million quid from non-dom, you know, this legal fiction of pretending you don't live in the country when you do.
But you're married to the Prime Minister.
Yeah,
yes.
And the information that originally kind of created this story coming from a Tory lord whose enormous donations got him to be a chairman of the Conservative Party. Yep. And then, what a coincidence, also were followed by him becoming a Tory peer.
Yes, imagine everyone's surprise. Yes, exactly.
What a shock.
This is it. Like, so you're saying the sums of money, you know, Keir Starmer mentioned this at PMQs. He did say, you know, attacking a working-class woman. Now, I'm sorry, I don't think we should hold people because they come from, I mean, she's come from a very tough background. And I've always said, I like her. I like Angela. And I think she does whatever she got on very well. You know, just because you come from a working class background doesn't mean we hold you to a lower standard. Is it because the sums of money are small and actually an awful lot of people will be going, yeah, I'd have done the same if I bought my council house at a discount. If I was moving in with my husband, I'd have kept it so I didn't have to pay the discount money back. Is there an element with lots of people, they're going, I'd have done it?
I mean, I'm sure...
Well, I'm not bothered. She was poor. She wasn't, you know, not paying millions in tax she owed like Nadeem Zahawi.
Well, quite. I think lots of people will look at it in roughly that way. But I think more important is that the police already looked into this.
No, they didn't look into it. They didn't look for any evidence. They didn't speak to neighbours who said that she was a, quote, effing liar for claiming she didn't live somewhere. When they say the police looked into it, they literally went, oh, is this a case? No, we're not going to bother. And there's no case to answer. They didn't literally look at any evidence. There hasn't been a proper police investigation.
Wait, what do you mean they didn't look into
evidence? They actually said they didn't look at the electoral roll. They didn't look at any of the tax. They didn't ask her for any... They didn't speak to Angela Rayner. In no way could you call that... Mind you, That is a police investigation now. That is. That's the state of our police. And it was only after a Tory MP actually complained about this that they've actually opened a proper investigation. And now, absurdly,
after political pressure, the police...
Political pressure?
The police looked at what they needed to look at and they decided that there was no reason to look at it.
This woman could be Deputy Prime Minister of our country in a few months' time. Here's the thing. Even if people say, I don't really care, even if people say, well, you know, it's years ago, it's small sums of money, moved on. If it is the case that she has lied, she's lying today as the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. She is, if it is the case, I don't know whether it's the case, but if she is lying today. In which case, is it okay to have people in high positions of office who are found out to be liars, if that is the case?
I mean, she's literally said she'd resign.
Yeah.
So you don't need to worry about that because she said she wouldn't stick in the job if that was the case. I trust the cops.
But if it's something that she'd resign over, then by definition, it's an important story, right?
This entire kind of squabble, which has been created by, you know, this Tory donor writing basically a work of political fiction, I don't
think it is political fiction.
And the entire thing is based on the idea that we shouldn't trust the police. That's what it's based on. The police said...
No, the police didn't do their job properly.
The police said that we shouldn't investigate.
Have you ever reported a crime to the police? I was absolutely flabbergasted how much I had to produce the evidence for them and actually, you know, contact witnesses and things. Absolutely bleeding useless. And if it wasn't for the fact that I'm as sharp-elbowed middle class as I could possibly be, that I actually got justice. I'm sorry.
I'll say it again. I trust the police. I trusted the police when they investigate, and now they are investigating with 12 people. I'll trust what they. I'll try.
Too many people. All right. Let me ask you finally. I want to talk about Rwanda. Okay. The Rwanda bill thwarted once again in the House of Lords, unelected, unaccountable peers. We are asking our audience about this today. We were told, oh, it's going to be law by Friday, ping-pong's going to end, Commons will assert their supremacy as the elected representatives of the people, but it's been delayed again because of two particular amendments that Lords are sticking to. I don't think those amendments are particularly a problem. I think another government might agree with them. But is Rishi Sunak right to basically stick to his guns at number 10 and say, look, you're trying to thwart this legislation and we need to get it through as is?
Well, politically, I suppose you could say he's right to, because the whole thing is a PR stunt. So, you know, why give up on your PR stunt just in the middle of its process? I really disagree with the way that you're framing it as there being something undemocratic about the House of Lords opposing... let me finish. Opposing the Commons on this. The whole function of our parliamentary system is that if the Commons is trying to get legislation through that wasn't in the manifesto of the government, then there's nothing particularly democratic about that legislation, and therefore the House of Lords, who are unelected, and they should be elected, the House of Lords has got the right to say no to it.
They have the right to say no, and then there's a process where we establish that it comes back, you know, off the ping pong. The House of Commons has made it really clear, no, we want to assert our supremacy, which they're allowed to do. Then, of course, it's undemocratic.
I mean...
They're not elected by me. They're not accountable to me. I can't get rid of any of these people. I can't vote them in or vote them out.
Well, I would love to have an elected second chamber.
Load of them are just failed, nobody would-be politicians.
I would love to have an elected second chamber. So I'm glad that we agree on that. Yeah, good. But the point is that this wasn't in the manifesto. You might say to me...
Most legislation that's passed through is not in the manifesto.
But the point is that the House of Lords doesn't have the constitutional responsibility to pass it through. What I would say is, like, one of the things that you sometimes hear is, oh, but, you know, sort of, the Rwanda bill has got the polling behind it, therefore the Lords should say yes to it. Like... It's very, very popular in this country to bring rail and mail and buses back into public ownership.
And yet...
And is the government doing that?
And indeed bringing back hanging, again, when people say... OK, Claire Pearsall, having worked in the Home Office, for a Home Office Minister, tell us your perspective on this. That was such a wonderful sigh.
I know. It was doomed to failure. It was so badly drawn up, this plan. It was badly thought. It wouldn't work. Open to legal challenge. And it doesn't... it wouldn't have ever met my threshold for, is this value for money for the UK taxpayer?
Such sums of money, isn't it?